Welcome everybody to our Community Check-in Friday. We are very, very excited to be bringing this special Community Check-in Friday to you all. This is going to be the first webinar of a three-part series where we're going to be going into all your questions in regards to any legal issues surrounding COVID. So first off, I'm going to start with some just general updates. So the governor recently signed an executive order allowing outside gatherings to increase to 100 people, while indoor gatherings are limited to 50 people or to 25% of the capacity. That is something that's very important to note. Some places that are smaller, their capacity is a lot less. So 25% of the capacity could be less than 50. So it ends up being whichever one is less. With that also, the governor has opened up houses of worship. And, for example, the mosques have opened up, I believe, 2 days ago. But the same concept that you have to still maintain social distancing, you still have to wear your masks, and you still have to maintain all the different protocols that are going on. So the goal is that the next couple of weeks, we're going to be updating you since the situation is quickly changing and a lot of different things are happening. One update on behalf of PAC is we are launching all of our summer programs, and they will be all taking place online this summer. So please make sure to visit our website at www.paccusa.org, where you can find all the information, and you can always call us at 973-253-6145, where we can also help you with all of your program needs. And with that, I'm very excited to be introducing our two wonderful speakers. So we are going to start off with Bassam Mustafa, who he recently is now a contributor of Forbes, which is amazing news. He's also contributed to NBC Telemundo. He also runs BSM Accounting, and we're very, very happy to have him with us today. So without further ado, Bassam, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I really appreciate you also putting this together. I know it takes a lot of time and effort putting it all together. So thank you again, and Ahmed, for coming on with us.
Of course.
So I just wanted to kind of, so today's really topic is going to be regarding, we're going to start off with some stimulus payments, some stimulus questions that people have. We're going to tackle some unemployment issues. I'll do the best of my ability trying to tackle some of those unemployment issues. And as well as we're going to speak a little bit to some self-employed individuals, contractors, and looking for additional stimulus and what stimulus is available to them. So regarding some stimulus updates, as of this morning, 12 million people are still at risk for not receiving their stimulus payments. So there could be multiple reasons why some of those people are not receiving those stimulus checks. One being that they collect SSI, Social Security income, and are required to go ahead onto the state website, the IRS website, and file a non-filer return. So they may not have all your information, they might not have your banking information and whatnot. So any person that's collecting Social Security and hasn't received a stimulus check needs to do so. If you're receiving a stimulus, if you're receiving Social Security and you have a dependent, that time actually passed. I believe it was May 15th to file that. So I would just go ahead and file it for you and your spouse. Another reason why some people maybe haven't received some of those stimulus checks is because they haven't filed their 2018 or 2019 taxes yet. So it's important to get those filed in time. Well, they're late, but it's important to file them. And as well as it's not going to be instant. So even if you file it today or a month from now, you still need to go ahead and wait until that happens. What I want sort of everybody to know that's watching is basically, if you didn't receive a stimulus check or a stimulus payment this year or so far, I don't want you to panic, because it doesn't mean you're not eligible for one. If you are eligible for one and you meet the criteria, even if you don't receive one until the end of the year, you will receive the credit when you file your 2020 tax return. So that's something to keep in mind. There's also other sort of adjustments that need to be made. So I'll give you guys an example. If you've had a child in 2019 and they're basing your stimulus payment on 2018, you're eligible for an additional $500 for that child. So you need to, don't be concerned or lost that you're not going to get that additional $500. When you go ahead and file your tax return for 2020, you will receive that additional $500. So that's one thing to note there. So we can talk a little bit about the status on how to get my payment link. So that's the first step to do. Go ahead onto the get my payment link and see if there's any additional information that's missing regarding your direct deposit information, any updates, if you need to go ahead and update your AGI information. So that all gets done through the Get My Payment link. I'm sure many people's familiar with that. If you have any questions on how to check that out, you can shoot me an email or give us a call. I can send you the website. And I know Rania is going to be posting a lot of resources to everybody afterwards. So we'll be sure to give you guys that link as well. Some people are going to receive debit cards, right? So that's a little bit something different. So the debit cards are going to work as cash. So you can go ahead and take the money out of the ATM accounts. You can use them as cash. You can buy gas, buy groceries, whatever you need to do. So that's another option. If you, for any reason, you think you may have thrown out that card, or you've thrown out any type of any of the documents you may need, or maybe the check that they mailed to you, there's the IRS has a dedicated phone line now available to anybody regarding stimulus questions. So I'll also send that information to Rania for you guys to be able to give them a call and figure out what the next steps are to get that stimulus check. So I think a lot of the questions are really coming from people. It's like, hey, how come I didn't receive my stimulus check? And really, they're not. You have to find out if you actually qualify. So there's different qualifications that you need to meet. If you need help with those qualifications, we'll help you on a one-on-one to find out if you do qualify. But first step is to make sure you qualify. Okay, and then track it in the IRS tools. If you need more information, update that information. If you threw away the check or the prepaid card, check that out. Make sure you go ahead and contact the IRS, file 2018 and 19, and then hopefully that should fix any issues. But by calling them, they should resolve any issues there. There's also a lot of talk right now with the president, Donald Trump, about sending a second round of checks that might be coming to a lot of people. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. I know there's a pretty high likely chance that that's going to happen. I just wrote some notes here. I don't know if we're getting any questions because this is.
So as of now, no, but you can keep going.
Okay, cool. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about unemployment. So unemployment is a very hot topic, right? And I want to just start off by saying about, unemployment is something that in general is not really something that gets prepared by an accountant or anything like that. It's something that you have to follow up with on an individual level and requires your certification on a weekly basis. So on a weekly basis, you need to go into your portal and verify on a specific time. So this week specifically, there's been a 2-week delay from Bank of America with an IT update that they had. So a lot of people's $600 payment that they should be receiving actually came in late. Maybe usually if you get it on like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, expect about a 2-3 day delay. If you didn't receive it, don't panic. It should be on its way. That's one thing to keep a lookout for. It's the time and slot for you in order to go ahead and set up that time to log into your unemployment and verify your unemployment is based off your social security number. So the state of New Jersey has a website active for you to look up the last, I think 4 or 2 of your social security number, and it'll give you an exact date and time for you to go ahead. It's a half-hour time slot. If you miss that time slot, there's like a 7 p.m. or a later time in the day for you to go ahead and update that time slot. But for the most part, that's very important that you're within that half hour, and you have to include all of that information from your verify that you're still not working and all that good stuff. So we've received actually a lot of questions regarding there's been a lot of delay with unemployment, correct? And we all know that. So what happens to the previous time? So you've been unemployed since March, for example, when COVID first struck. So since then, maybe you haven't received a single dollar of unemployment. So until it's actually approved, they're going to go ahead and pay you in retrospect whatever all the money that they owe you. So as at that specific date when you were not working, that's till the date till today, they'll go ahead and pay you that plus your $600. So keep a lookout for that. It's taking a while to get approved. I mean, I have clients that called us this week that had applications in March that are just getting approved now. So they'll send you the lump sum, but you just have to stay on top of it. There's not a 1-800 number or anything for you to call as of now. However, there is on the state website, I noticed today that starting next week, there's an unemployment call center that will open for aiding individuals to apply for unemployment that have applied online only. So starting next week, if you go into myunemployment.nj.gov, and I'll send that also to you, Rania. So there's a phone number on there starting next week that you'll be able to call and track and follow up on your status with unemployment.
Thank you, Bassam. We actually received a question. If you want to, so Nisreen Abu Afa asks, if you file a claim a couple of weeks after being laid off, will the person get paid starting date of claim, or would it start from the day a person was laid off?
It will start on the day of laid off. So on the actual date that you were that you stopped working, and then you put it in. So even if you put, maybe it takes you 2-3 weeks to put in that claim, it's going to start as of the date that when you first were unemployed. So it'll pay you in retrospect. Okay. Was there another question? Was that another question or?
Yes, there was another question if you want to take it right now. So someone that is an admin on our page is asking, what's the qualifications for a stimulus check?
The qualifications for a stimulus check. So one of the first qualification is the income qualification, right? So if you're single, it's 75,000 up to 100,000. So once you hit the $75,000 mark, it'll start to phase out incrementally until it gets to 100,000. If you're married, it's going to double, so 150, and it becomes completely phased out at 200 grand. So that's one of the first qualifications. The other qualification is you need to have a social security number. So you're not going to receive one if you file your taxes using an ITIN number. One important thing to note: if you're married and you have a social security number and your spouse has an ITIN number, you're not going to get the stimulus payment for either one of you guys. So it's going to probably have to come when you file your return in 2020. So that's one thing to note. You're most likely not going to get that stimulus check if you file with an ITIN number. We talked about income, eligibility. Those are the two major, I mean, off the top of my head, that are going to qualify you. There's a whole checklist that we can go through. I don't have it open in front of me, but for the most part, those are most two. It's really based on income level and your qualifications as an individual to receive it. Also filing your 2018 tax return to make sure 2018 was filed, and you have to update your direct deposit information. Okay. There's actually another question here on Instagram. So did you see that or no?
For some reason, I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is. I see it now. What about people who applied for unemployment benefits that are unrelated to COVID-19 layoff?
Okay. What about people who applied for unemployment benefits that are unrelated to COVID-19 layoff? Yeah, I mean, they're still receiving they're going to still receive the $600. As everybody that qualifies, everyone that's been laid off from that time frame. I mean, when were they laid off? Were they laid off a year ago or 2 years? Actually, I mean, it doesn't even matter. I know we've had people that have been laid off in 2018 that are receiving the extra $600. So that would not make a difference whatsoever.
Thank you, Bassam. We have another two questions from Facebook, and they're this related. Their children are independent and file taxes on their own. But they never got a check. What would be the reasoning behind that?
Okay, so the first thing to find out, if your children are filing independent, they should have received a check. So if they did not receive a check, there are two reasons why. Maybe you are claiming them as maybe they are filing their own separate tax return, but you're still claiming them as dependents in for a previous year because of the education credit that many parents want to take for their children if they're still in college or whatnot. So what a lot of preparers can do is file a tax return for the student or the person to be able to get their taxes back, receive the taxes that they paid, especially if it's low income, and then they'll also claim those individual or those students. If that's not the case and they file their own tax return completely separate, then when was the last time they filed a separate tax return? So maybe for 2019 they filed a separate tax return, but for 2018 they were still under the parents. And they may have based it off 2018. Those individuals, I would say, don't worry. When you file your 2020 tax return and you're an individual and you did not receive your $1,200 stimulus check, you'll receive that at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021 tax filing season. However, let me just kind of give you guys some information on what the stimulus check is. What the stimulus check is an advance to a credit that's available to taxpayers in 2021 for the tax year of 2020. So you're receiving the money in advance. That's what these stimulus checks are. If you receive more than you should have, the IRS clarified that they're not going to ask you for that money back. But if you did receive less, they're going to go ahead and give you the difference of what that money is. So they're using 2018 and 19 as a guide to give you an advance to what 2020 is going to look like. However, if that's not the case, when you file your 2021 in 2021, when you file your 2020 tax return, you will receive them. So for those students or those children that did not receive it, you will receive them. So that's.
So I have another question. The first question is, since you started talking about tax filing, some people have complained that the money that they're getting has been a little delayed. Is there a reason for that? And when do they expect, if they filed, when do they expect to receive that money?
Are you talking about tax returns?
Yes, tax returns.
Yeah, I mean, depends on how they filed. I mean, if you mailed a tax return, it's the IRS, just like the whole world, has been shut down. So it's literally sitting in like the mail pile waiting for them to process it. In the perfect world, it would take 6 to 8 weeks for them to process the return. But if they mailed it, it could delay it. That's one. Electronic returns I've seen that have been delayed, but not much, like 2-3 weeks. They could be delayed for other reasons, maybe verification. There's a lot of fraud also. During this pandemic, there's been a lot of fraud with people with the IRS and everything like that, with the taxpayers, because they're receiving phone calls, and so many people are eager to receive those stimulus checks that they'll get a phone call and saying, "Hey, we're the IRS. Give us your routing and checking account number so we can update your file and send you the stimulus check." Which anybody would be like, "All right, great, yes, I'm getting my stimulus check. I haven't received it. I can't wait. I need the money. Here's my routing and checking account number." And they've had funds taken out of their account. So there's definitely fraud out there right now. But for that person that's taking a while for them to receive their refund, I would just say it could be for other reasons like verification of identity. So just keep you can track your status of your refund online. It's called just Google Track My Refund IRS. It'll give you a tool for you to go ahead and put it in. And it'll give you the exact status of where your refund is. So you can use that tool there.
And the other question or comment, so for some of the people that are questioning, just to, again, verify that you need to verify all your information. Sometimes actually they don't have the right direct deposit information, or they don't have the right information that they need in order to send the money. So if you just go to your website, go to the website and update it. And this time maybe you can talk about that specific website and how they can verify their information, so that people can verify and get the money.
Yeah, so Track My Refund will allow that person to put in your social, your name, your address, and you need the exact amount of the refund amount that you're receiving. So pull up your tax return, look at the refund amount, plug it in, and then it should tell you exactly. If it gives you a screen that says you need to verify some information, then go ahead and verify it. If not, then it will. If it's telling you we can't find your refund, we can't find it, then there's probably a delay in processing your return. So you just you just have to wait. I mean, there's really just make sure that it was mailed out. Hopefully, if you did mail it out, you certified it, and if it was filed, make sure it was accepted by the IRS. So check with your tax preparer or with your TurboTax or online filers if it was accepted.
Thank you, Bassam. Is there any other information you want to share before we switch on to Ahmed? And then I want to encourage the audience to keep sending in their questions, whether that be through Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. And also for long-term questions, you can email us at info@paccusa.org. The email is scrolling on the bottom of the screen.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we covered a lot of the topics that we talked about. So individuals, we talked about the stimulus check. We talked about unemployment, and I think the last thing we want to talk about was the business returns. So tax returns for businesses and flow-through entities are going to be due June 15th. So I said 3 days. You need to file those business returns, and if you need to file for an extension, you can file for an extension till September 15th to file for those flow-through entities. Individuals, it's an extra 30 days, so July 15th, those are due. If you owe usually estimated tax payments, the deadline was actually is going to be June 15th. They just extended that to July 15th as well. Stimulus for self-employed and self-employed contractors. Right now, PPP applications, payroll protection program applications, are still being accepted for self-employed individuals. So if you're a self-employed contractor receiving a 1099, unemployment is one option for you to apply through unemployment. Unemployment is going to deny you, but then it's going to give you access to the pandemic unemployment assistance. So you're going to get an email from that after you were denied with the state of New Jersey. You can either apply for the unemployment or apply for the PPP application afterwards. What I recommend is you go ahead and apply for the unemployment during the time that you were not working, and then apply for the PPP application in order to help you give you a jump start when you get back into work. So when the actual unemployment is ended. I think that's everything that I want to cover. Those are just like some last minute updates. Cool.
Cool. Thank you very much, Bassam. We do have one last question, which I think you covered it earlier, but if you can just summarize
Sure.
it, which is, if I file for my stimulus check late, can I still get it? I think you said the deadline passed, correct?
If you filed for your stimulus check, you mean filing your tax return in order for you to get a stimulus check, or did you file for a retirement, like you received Social Security and you have dependents and you're waiting for that stimulus check? I just need you to verify.
So if I file for my stimulus checks, this is what it says. If I file for my stimulus checks late, can I get the credit from before? So I think they mean if I file my taxes late, can I still get the stimulus checks?
So if you filed your taxes late, meaning like just in the last couple weeks, I haven't heard of anybody receiving recently. I mean, it takes time, right? But I haven't heard as of now have anyone received those checks. I know there's still a lot of people that haven't received checks, and I think they're still sending out checks. They said they're still going to be sending them out into like September and October. So I don't deny that you will receive a check, but I will say that it's probably going to take a while. So it's not going to be in a week or 2 weeks, because you got to send your return. It's got to get processed. Once it's processed, I mean, the wheels of the IRS are so slow turning, and then everything was shut down for 3 weeks. I mean, there's a lot of discussion right now about just sending IRS agents back to work just to clean up the mail that they have, because it's so backed up. So it's going to be a while. Is really what I'm trying to say. By September, October, if you still haven't received it, I would say just you'll probably get it in January, February timeframe.
Thank you very much, Bassam. The last question we had was, some people were asking about the second stimulus check. Can you talk a little bit about that? Any update you have in regards to that?
Yeah, so they amended the PPP requirements that just passed last week, and there's a lot of talk that they're going to be sending out additional stimulus checks and stimulus payment. So it's a second wave of stimulus package for individuals and businesses. What that entails is still up in the air. I know they're going back and forth on it, but regardless of what they pass, it's going to include stimulus checks, right? Because that's what everybody wants. That's how to get a lot of the money to the corporations and keeping us silent, right? I mean, give us $1,200, we won't say anything. But I'm pretty sure that's going to pass in the next like 2 months. I want to say in the summertime.
Thank you very much, Bassam. And a great transition is Drahab says, I really want to thank you guys for helping out the community, and thank you for Bassam for answering all these wonderful questions. So thank you very much, Bassam. Like I said, this is a part of a one-part of a three-part series that our goal is to kind of talk all different topics in regards to all the different legal aspects of COVID-19, including all accounting, tax questions. So if you do have any questions, please make sure to send an email to info@paccusa.org. The email is on the bottom of the screen. It does help us in the future workshops to kind of gear more towards your questions. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to be discussing in future workshops. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Ahmed Abouras, who was newly admitted into the bar as an attorney. Congratulations, we're very, very proud. Yes, huge accomplishment. He's also a Palestinian organizer and an active volunteer from Turmasaya. So without further ado, Ahmed's going to be discussing today tenant rights, foreclosures, and anything around that topic. And again, if you have any questions, please make sure to leave it in the comments.
Thank you, Rania, for having me. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So like Rania said, we're going to start talking about basically lockouts. To start off, we all know like this COVID reality is real, and it's been, life-changing for many of us. And it's for the foreseeable future, we're going to be in this health crisis COVID situation up until at least phase 4 or phase 5, like the governor said, which is, looking forward to maybe October, September earliest. And as you all know, on March 19th, the governor signed an executive order basically saying it's an eviction moratorium. Basically, no one's allowed to get evicted or removed from his house during this health crisis. And this is going to stay in effect up until 2 months after the health crisis is declared ended, meaning if phase 5 comes to an end in September, this will still be in effect up until 2 months after, unless the governor gives signs a new executive order saying it's going to be repealed earlier. And basically, your landlord, any notice, if you got a notice from the court saying, you have a court day, there's a lockout, removal proceedings, that's all put on hold up until the executive eviction moratoriums, comes to an end. What if your landlord starts acting out and he locks you out, right? He throws your stuff in the street and he says, I'm going to evict you myself. I need my rent. That's completely illegal. I've heard it. I know you'd be surprised, but I've heard it already from 2 people from our community who have reached out saying their landlord has tried to lock the doors and toss them out of their apartment. Automatically call the police, reach out for help. It's a crime. He's not allowed to resort to self-help. Make sure you don't stay quiet and reach out for help. Rent payments. Obviously, we understand the situation. It's a difficult situation. You still have to make your rent payments. However, landlords, the most they can do is file eviction notices, and nothing's being done in courts right now. So they're just going to have to hold off. If you fall behind on your rent, you can still face ultimately possibly eviction in the future. So you just do your best to pay as much as you can. Landlords are required, according to Executive Order 128 that was signed by the governor, landlords are required to accept the security deposit as a form of rental payment. And they can't ask for it to be reimbursed or refilled up until 6 months, until after the health crisis is done. So, do your best. Try to take advantage of your security deposit that your landlord has and use it for rental payments to keep up to your payments. If you really need assistance, call 211, call the Department of Community Affairs. There's a lot of resources available in the government for, assistance for rent. I know for a fact June 15th, they'll be accepting online applications starting in July, but June 15th, they're going to have more information about rental assistance. And there will be a lot of, I think the governor mentioned $100 million in assistance for rental payments. So see if you qualify, apply. The application should be opening around July. About court hearings, like we said, like I just mentioned earlier, your landlord can take you to court. He's gonna he's gonna file for eviction, but nothing's being heard. Landlord-tenant court is closed. There's nothing being done unless really emergent hearings. Are you entitled to fixing your apartment? If you say if you're saying my apartment that needs necessary repairs, yes, you're entitled to safe and healthy housing. So if your landlord doesn't want to make the repairs, then do your best to make the repairs and withhold the rent. Use it for withholding rent, and you should always reach out to like attorneys. If you can't afford an attorney, there's a lot of organizations like Legal Services of New Jersey, Volunteer Lawyers for Justice. They provide a lot of legal services for free, and they can help you, guide you along your path. Utilities in New Jersey, they cannot shut off the utilities, specifically because does the same apply? Here's a question. I'm sorry. Does this apply to commercial tenants? Commercial tenants, basically, the same thing. There's no evictions right now occurring in court, but I know they're more stringent on commercial tenants paying their fees. So do your best. Try to work an agreement with your landlord. I know I've heard some business owners basically communicating with their landlord, telling them just, I'll still owe you the amount. Just put it on hold for a small amount of period, just until I can make up my payments. And they're really understanding. If they can't, then there's nothing else they can do. They can file for an eviction, but nothing's going through the court system right now. Not until July 15th, I believe. And even then, the court actions that are being heard, the court hearings, are emergent matters only. For foreclosures, similarly, the same eviction moratorium applies to homeowners. So if you have a mortgage, especially a federal-backed mortgage, part of the CARES Act legislation, it basically gives you the opportunity to have a 180-day grace period. So if landlords or homeowners have a 180-day grace period where they're not paying their mortgages, they cannot, for that same amount of time, request that rents are made. So if you're not paying rent, they can't say, I want to collect my rent, but at the same time, they're not paying for their mortgages. So that eviction moratorium applies in the same way for homeowners. If there was any, some counties, they're still hearing foreclosure proceedings. The sale can go through. There's still a sheriff sales happening, but nothing's being processed. So even if there is a sheriff sale, nothing's being processed up until this health crisis ends. Yeah, that's all I have. If there's any questions, Rania, specific questions.
Yeah, so there are a few questions. If anyone has any specific questions, please make sure to leave it in the comment box so that we can address it. So a common question that I've heard a lot is, do I still owe rent? Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, you still owe rent. Unless the landlord forgives you, it's still amount owed and due to the landlord. You can try to come to an agreement with the landlord. You can use your security deposit to cover some of the rent amount, but eventually you're going to have to pay that amount. So if you fall behind too much, then you could ultimately face possible eviction.
Yeah, so I think that's very important for everybody to know, is that you may not be able to pay it right now, but that doesn't mean that rent is forgiven. It means that you still owe it, and it has to be paid at some point later in time. I think the best way to go about this is to try your best to have open communication with your landlord, so that they could help you out in any way that they can. The next question I hear a lot about is, are mortgage loans and payments also being forgiven? Or postponed for now, or what's the process on that?
So like I said, it depends if it's a federal-backed mortgage. If it's a federal-backed mortgage, they're entitled to a 180-day grace period, according to the CARES Act legislation that was just passed in Congress, part of the stimulus package. If specifically like FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac mortgages, there's you have a 180-day grace period. It's not forgiven, but there's no penalties, no fees, no interest being collected from these lenders, but it's gonna get added to the back end of your mortgage. So it'll be like 30 years and 6 months, for example.
Hey, I have a question actually. Does the individual have to is there like something they have to do that, or is it automatically pushed out?
No, it's not automatically pushed out. You can reach out and you can request this grace period. You show them that I'm having a financial difficulty, I was laid off, whatever the case may be, and they'll qualify you automatically and they'll push the grace period. They're forced to by this legislation for federal-backed mortgages. If it's a private mortgage, not necessarily. It's you're protected, I think, up to 60 days in New Jersey alone, due to the governor's executive order.
So the other question that I have is related to, or I guess it's important to note that the way that this works is, again, they're trying to find different ways to make this happen. So you may not owe it right now, but you are going to owe it eventually. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I've heard, and Ahmed, maybe you can talk about this a little bit more, that like you just said, if anyone needs any additional assistance and you're calling your utilities company or your mortgage or anything, it does help a lot. And actually, if you want any of these leniency programs, you should mention that either you got laid off or this is COVID related, like you got a pay cut or whatever it is. So I think that's very important to note. So do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
So like I mentioned, Department of Community Affairs always has great information about different resources, whether it's utilities help, rent payments, whatever it may be. But I know there's a new package that's coming down with New Jersey that's $100 million specific for rental assistance. More information is going to be available June 15th, so I think in a couple of days. But the applications will open in July. So if you've been really behind on rent and you can really, you really need some help, keep up to date with the website, apply in July, contact them, reach out to them. There's a lot of resources on the Department of Community Affairs website. I believe it's dca.gov.
So we received another question saying, does the law apply for mixed use property? I have a tenant who did not pay for 4 months. It's commercial. What should I do?
So again, like I said, the best you can do is try to postpone your mortgage payments so you're not paying out of pocket for your mortgage if you have a mortgage on the property. And, you keep a tab of everything that's going on, and you're going to have to file for eviction in the court system. Most courts right now, they're only hearing, emergency matters, but anything with landlord tenant, they haven't even decided to open yet. So I think the notice is up to like July 15th, they said. That's when landlord tenant court will be open.
Oh, are there any, I have a question, I'm sorry. Is there anything that the cities are doing to kind of extend tax payments for people that don't have mortgages?
I haven't heard of anything. I know they were people trying to reach out to the tax assessors, trying to get tax credits, I believe, for landowners and property owners, but I don't think there's anything coming down in legislation right now.
The second quarter, I believe, was due like in May, like end of May or something. Yeah. So I'm not sure if
maybe they'll be postponing it,
maybe
payments, but I don't think there's credit or relief for tax payments.
Sorry, I don't mean to chime in, but I have clients sometimes that say like, oh well, I don't have to make my my rent payment, and a lot of times it's false, right? I mean, they have to make that rent payment regardless of what it is. And also from I think one, from an ethical standpoint, that they should make it. Two, if they're gonna get evicted, if they get evicted, they got to go and put another application to another landlord, and they're gonna ask, why were you evicted? And then if they call out the landlord, and they had a bad experience, it's like it's gonna snowball into other things. So I think the right thing to do, if you can afford it, if you can make the payment, I think it's probably best for both people to make the payment. Yeah.
I know for a fact there's government websites that are, when you go through an eviction proceeding and you get evicted for non-payment of rent, I know you go to a database and that's like a black mark. So when you go to a new landlord, they look you up and it's like a file. It's like I don't know what to call it. It's on your credit report that you have been evicted so and so times for non-payment of rent. It's going to be much harder to get a new place if you think like, I'm not going to get evicted, I don't have to pay rent. It's from an ethical point of view, like you said, we're Muslims, and the least we can do is understand that also the landlord has expenses. They also have burdens to meet. So we do our best to at least, meet them halfway, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think something important to note, because we've been getting a lot of different calls about people unable to pay their rent. There are a lot of different relief programs that are happening there. There are a lot of different organizations like Wafa House, for example, that are working on helping people, giving them the extra push they need to help pay the rent. But what's important is exactly like Bassam and Ahmed said, if you can pay the rent, please do. Do not abuse the system. Do not abuse the leniency. Do not abuse any of the organizations, because by doing that, you end up ruining it for everybody else. In the event that you really cannot afford it, like we said, there's the forgiveness programs, there are the leniency programs. There are different organizations that are helping. There are government assistance that's coming your way. However, just remember that the landlord cannot evict you. So legally, because we've heard a lot of stories of landlords threatening to kick people out, throwing out their stuff, putting them in the driveway, blocking their house. All of that at the same side is also very, very important. We are all going through a hard time right now. We need to be more forgiving. We need to be more understanding to one another, and together we'll be able to get through this stronger as a community. I know it's rough right now, but if both the landlord and both the renter, the tenant are putting each other's needs in mind, I think we'll be able to get through this.
This
And actually,
public housing as well. Like, just because you're getting public housing and you're not paying for rent, they cannot evict you either. Like, evictions are completely on stop up until this health crisis is over.
and I just wanted to put this out there too. There was so with unemployment right now, a lot of people are getting $600 more a week, and business owners are having a hard time rehiring those individuals because they're making more money on unemployment than they would have been making on their job. So some people can afford the rent but choose not to. So
Absolutely.
pay your rent.
And again, actually, that's a great point to also bring up, is that some people are getting unemployment, but we have to remember that we have a lot of people who are undocumented or are not getting any government assistance, and those people are truly suffering because they're out of a job, they're not getting any unemployment benefits, they're not getting the stimulus check, they're not getting any of that. And again, you're by taking resources from certain organizations that are willing to help, you are taking away from those who really need it. So please keep that in mind, and also please keep those people in mind. If you know somebody who's like that, try to reach out to them, try to see how you can help them in any way that's possible. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, and we've heard a lot of really, really heartbreaking stories. So I know everybody's going through a really tough time, but together we will rise through this and we will get through this as a community. And as always, we are here to help you in any way that we can, whether that be giving you resources or referring you to other organization or helping in our capacity. So our information is below, so please make sure to reach out to us and we'll try to help out.
So we can, like Rania mentioned in the beginning, we want to be able to guide this discussion towards helping you. So we know there's a lot of changes. Like I just got a text message from the government saying June 22nd, public pools are opening. So not only June 15th that we open dining, June 22nd we have public pools and swimming areas going to open as well. So it's constantly changing, and we want to, whatever the community needs, whatever questions you guys have, send it to us so we can discuss it live together, I guess.
So I think also we're going to talk about, we have our appointments. So if anyone needs any help for whatsoever, you can go ahead and contact Rania, and I guess you're going to be making appointments for anybody that have questions.
Yes, and I also put it in the comments. There is a link you can sign up. This is how you can get a short consultation appointment with Bassam to help you. I'm working on getting Ahmed's link. Once I get that, we'll make sure to have it in the next webinar. This will be a short consultation to kind of help you. If you have specific questions, they will point you in the right direction. Again, we are here to help you in any way that we can. And we're very, very grateful for both Bassam and Ahmed for their resources and their help in ensuring that our community gets the help that they need. So please do make sure, I posted it twice in the comments section. I will post it now on Instagram as well. Please make sure to sign up for a consultation appointment if you need help with that. Bassam, I do have 2 more questions for you before we sign off. So a common question that we actually hear is, what if a couple got divorced over the last couple of times or are separated? What happens to this stimulus check? And is there anything that they can do to receive some of that funding?
So the question is going to lie is if the IRS is using a previous year tax return. So for example, if they separated or were divorced in 2018 and they filed a separate return, then each one of those individuals are going to receive their own stimulus check. If in 2019 that happened and they based it off 2018, then that one person, if they filed a joint return for 2018, they'll receive $2,400 in that event, correct? So it really depends on what the time that the divorce actually took place and the type of the time frame of when that, and who's claiming the kids, who's not claiming the kids, and all that good stuff, right? So it depends if they filed 2019 very, very quickly. If they filed 2000, maybe so. I mean, I would need to know more information, and obviously, like, our link is right there. If they need, I don't want to put anybody's information out there that doesn't want to, so they can go ahead and make an appointment. If they need further information on that, they can just make an appointment, and I'll help them figure that out. But it really depends on the timing, is to answer your question. So.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up question, and I do agree. Anyone who needs specific help with this, please make sure to fill up the link. But if they have specific, like for example, if they got divorced within the last year, and now, for example, they did file jointly and they put the husband's account number or account name and the money went into the husband's account, is there anything that the now wife can do to get that money? I guess that's for both Ahmed and Bassam, because that's a legal question. Great.
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you repeat the question real quick?
So if someone got divorced in the last year, because I've heard this question actually a couple of times, or got divorced recently, and now the money all went towards the husband, or the ex-husband now, his account, and now the ex-wife wants that money because she's entitled to it. Is there any legal action that she can take to get that money?
I mean, she should first contact the lawyer that dealt with the whole divorce in the first place. I'm sure she had an attorney. The attorney can easily just, contact the other side's attorney and request that the funds be sent over, because it was sent to him in her name, his account, because they were either filed together or she was his dependent or whatnot. So she's entitled to it. I mean, and if they refuse, then, court actions might need to take place, but I don't think he'll be entitled to refuse at all. If it's, if she's entitled to the fund, he's gonna give it to her.
Well, also just as a follow up to that, like I said previously, it's it's an advance to 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So the husband, even if they don't give it to you, the wife is most likely, when she files her 2020 returns, she's gonna indicate she didn't receive the stimulus check, and she's gonna receive it on her behalf. So, and they won't ask the husband to return that money. So, he may make out $1,200, and she may still get the $1,200 when she files her tax return. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think this is where, like, again, back to our original thing, I think right now everybody's going through a tough time. So we all need to kind of keep in mind the benefit of the other. I know you may have gotten divorced, but still, this is your ex-wife. And if she's entitled to that money, we don't need to go through all this court proceedings to get to that.
Yeah.
So with that, before we introduce the next couple of workshops, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the comment box. I'm going to give some shout outs that I received for Ahmed becoming an attorney, from Inas saying congratulations, from Hikmat Abu Ras saying Allah yahfadak, Ammi tirfa ras, alf mabruk. And we also have from Junior Shukri saying Abu Amr Abu Ras is the man. So thank you all for very much, being engaging and wonderful. And I do agree, both these gentlemen are wonderful resources for our community. So closing words.
I'll start off if Bassam's. I'll start off. So thank you guys for tuning in. We look forward to next week. Hopefully we'll discuss more important topics, or something that's that's more relevant to the situation with everything changing. June 15th, everything's going to open up, but again, there's going to be a lot of regulations on how many people can attend restaurants, masajid and stuff, and maybe we can go over that a little bit more and discuss some of that stuff. Same with Bassam. I'm sure they might change some of the the loans or the PPP loans and stuff, regulations. If you want to talk about that, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So next week, actually, our agenda is going to talk a little bit about the small business PPP information. We're going to talk about the EIDL information and other platforms and stuff, other loans. There's changes to the PPP that took place just last week. So yeah, for sure, we are. Next week, I think we have a heavy load of material on for small business owners. So small business owners should definitely tune in next week. A lot of changes, a lot of things going on. So for sure.
I have a lot of friends reaching out saying I didn't get any SBA offering or no PPP loans, and I'm telling them there's a lot of things changing in the rules, so you might need to apply again.
Absolutely.
Sam froze. He's still on Instagram now.
Okay, I think he stepped out for a minute. But with that, first I want to shout out Ahmed Abu Ras, who is Ahmed's mother, who said Allah yarda alik. I always have a soft spot for moms. But okay, so our next two workshops, like I said from the beginning, this is a first workshop of the 3 workshop series. So today was June 12th. Next week on June 17th, which is a Wednesday at 5 p.m., we're going to be doing the same format. If you have any questions or any concerns, please make sure to reach out to us with the email that's listed below at info@paccusa.org so that we could address your questions earlier rather than later. And then the last workshop, the third workshop, will be taking place June 23rd, which is a Tuesday at 5 p.m. And we'll have our wonderful guests with us, and we're very excited to have them join us. Unfortunately, it looks like Bassam dropped off the call, but we will see you all next week. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Thank you very much, Bassam.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys both very much. Have a wonderful day. Everyone out there, please stay safe. Please continue maintaining social distancing, even though the world is opening up, because we don't want another crisis. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Okay, bye.